1 day to live, at most. Dr. Mitchell's words echoed through the VIP corridor of Mount Sinai Hospital like a death sentence. Victoria Blackwood, heiress to a billion-dollar pharmaceutical empire, held tightly to the hand of her 7-year-old daughter Isabella, who was battling a rare disease that not even all the money in the world could cure. "We've transferred all the other patients in this wing," the head nurse whispered to Dr. Mitchell, lowering her voice. "Mrs. Blackwood doesn't want her daughter to have contact with ordinary people during these last moments." Outside the hospital, sitting on the steps of the service entrance, Jamal watched the frantic activity through the illuminated windows. At 12 years old, he knew every corner of that hospital better than the staff themselves. Not because he was a patient, his family could never afford private treatment, but because that was where he could get the best leftovers from the kitchen trash and where he could shelter from the rain. "Hey kid, get out of there." Security guard Harrison approached with his usual look of disgust. "Today is not the day for vagrants to be causing trouble. There are important people here." Jamal got up slowly, accustomed to these daily expulsions. But something was different that night. Through the third-floor window, he could see a little girl lying in a bed surrounded by machines. She was awake, staring at the ceiling, and for some reason he couldn't explain, Jamal felt an inexplicable connection to that child who, despite all their social differences, seemed as lonely as he was. "Doctor, we've tried all the experimental protocols available," the specialist explained to Victoria. "The medication that could save her exists, but..." "But what?" Victoria interrupted, her voice laden with the desperation of a millionaire accustomed to buying solutions. "It's in the testing phase. It hasn't been approved for commercial use. Not even our influence can speed up the bureaucratic process in time." Victoria looked out the window and saw the black boy being chased away by security. For a second, their eyes met through the glass. There was something in that boy's gaze. A strange serenity, as if he held secrets that even she, with all her power and connections, could not imagine. Jamal was expelled, but he did not go far. Something kept him close to that hospital, close to that girl who was dying in luxury while he survived in misery. While the most expensive doctors in the country declared the case impossible, he remained there, as if he knew something that the diplomas hanging on the walls could not teach. And maybe he did know. After all, when you grow up on the streets, you learn that miracles rarely come from where everyone expects them to. If you're enjoying this story of overcoming adversity that goes far beyond what the eye can see, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what this boy knew about healing will surprise even the most experienced doctors. Inside the luxurious room, Isabella murmured deliriously about the boy at the window, as her temperature rose dangerously. Victoria held her hand, whispering desperate promises of trips to Paris and pink ponies if she could just hang on a little longer. "Mrs. Blackwood," Dr. Mitchell approached with his professional expression of rehearsed compassion, "perhaps it's time to consider comfort measures. Making her as comfortable as possible during..." "No." Victoria exploded, her eyes red from crying. "I'm not giving up. Is there anything you haven't tried? Any specialist we haven't consulted?" The doctor sighed, as if explaining something obvious to a stubborn child. "Ma'am, we've mobilized the best professionals on the continent. We've spent resources that cost more than some entire hospitals. The reality is that certain things are beyond our control, even with all the resources available." Outside, Jamal had found another vantage point. He was leaning against the back wall when he overheard two nurses talking during their cigarette break. "It's such a shame," said Rebecca, the older one. "Such a little girl. But at least she's getting the best treatment money can buy." "Best treatment," Janet muttered, discarding her cigarette butt. "They didn't even test her liver toxicity levels before bombarding her with that experimental cocktail. Anyone who grew up in the community would know that." "Know what?" Rebecca raised her eyebrows. "Nothing," Janet shook her head. "It's just that sometimes the simplest treatments get overlooked when there's a lot of money involved. My grandmother used to say that when you have a golden hammer, everything looks like a diamond nail." Jamal approached quietly. His grandmother had said exactly the same thing, but about medicinal herbs that grew in the city's vacant lots. She had been a respected healer in the community before she died, and had taught him secrets that no medical degree included in the curriculum. Meanwhile, Victoria was on the verge of hysteria. "Doctor, my daughter is talking about a boy she's never seen before. Is that normal?" "Delusions are common at this stage," Dr. Mitchell replied coldly. The brain sometimes creates comforting images when... He has kind eyes, Mommy, Isabella murmured weakly, pointing to the window. The boy said he'll help me. Victoria rushed to the window, but saw only the empty parking lot and the city lights. What she didn't notice was Jamal on the other side of the building, studying the plants in the hospital's therapeutic garden through a different window, plants he recognized from the natural pharmacy his grandmother had taught him about. Dr. Mitchell, the head nurse interrupted, the latest blood tests. The doctor frowned as he read the results. This doesn't make sense. The levels should be going down with the medication, not up. Maybe the protocol is wrong, suggested a younger resident. Impossible, Dr. Mitchell cut him off. This protocol was developed by the best experts at Harvard and Johns Hopkins. We're not going to start questioning years of medical research now. Victoria noticed the tension in his voice. Is there a problem? No problem, Mrs. Blackwood. Just routine adjustments. But there was a real problem. Dr. Mitchell knew that the experimental treatment was actually accelerating the girl's condition. He had staked his reputation on that protocol, and admitting the mistake would mean not only losing his prestigious position but facing possible lawsuits for medical malpractice. Outside, Jamal finally got the information he needed. He had heard enough of the leaked conversations to understand exactly what was happening to Isabella. The problem wasn't just the disease, it was the treatment that was killing her faster. His grandmother always said, Jamal, knowledge is only valuable if it is used to help those in need. It doesn't matter if they see you as an equal or not. He looked at his hands, calloused from working on the streets, then at the imposing facade of the hospital where doctors in white coats made decisions based on expensive protocols that were completely failing. For a moment, he considered simply walking away. After all, why would a poor black boy get involved with the rich white elite? They had made it clear that he was not welcome there. But then, through the distant window, he saw Isabella writhing in pain while Victoria cried helplessly beside the bed. Some injustices are too great to ignore, even when you're just a child who should be invisible to the world. And sometimes, the one who everyone believes has nothing to offer is exactly the one who carries the answer that everyone is desperately seeking. What those doctors, trained at the best universities, didn't know was that the boy they had despised held knowledge that could save the life they were inadvertently destroying with their academic arrogance. Jamal didn't sleep that night. Sitting on a bench in the square in front of the hospital, he watched the lit windows on the third floor while mentally organizing everything his grandmother had taught him about medicinal plants. Isabella was dying not only from her illness, but from the pride of doctors who refused to admit their mistakes. "Young man, are you okay?" A soft voice pulled him out of his thoughts. It was Elena Rodriguez, the hospital's night janitor, who had noticed the boy standing there for hours. At 45, she had seen a lot in those hallways. "The girl on the third floor," Jamal muttered, his eyes still fixed on Isabella's window. "She's going to die because of the medicine they're giving her." Elena frowned. As a caretaker, she had access to conversations that doctors thought no one was listening to. "How do you know that?" "My grandmother was a healer. She taught me that when the liver is overloaded, certain medications become poison." Jamal turned to Elena, his eyes shining with a determination she didn't expect to see in someone so young. "They're killing her with that experimental treatment." Elena sat down next to him on the bench. During 15 years of cleaning that hospital, she had witnessed situations where the medical ego prevailed over the well-being of patients, especially when a lot of money was involved. "And what do you intend to do with this information?" "I don't know yet," Jamal admitted. "But I can't let a child die when I know how to help." Meanwhile, at the hospital, Victoria remained at Isabella's bedside, who deliriously muttered about the boy with the sad eyes who had promised to help her. Dr. Mitchell entered the room every hour, checking the monitors with growing nervousness. "Her vitals are deteriorating faster than expected," he murmured to his assistant. "Perhaps we should consider reducing the dosage of the experimental protocol." "Doctor, if we reduce it now and she doesn't respond, our entire research will be called into question," the resident replied quietly. "The ethics committee is already asking questions about the inconsistent results." Dr. Mitchell glanced at Victoria, who had fallen asleep in the chair next to the bed, exhausted from crying. His career was hanging by a thread, and admitting that the treatment was harming Isabella would mean not only losing prestige but facing possible charges of medical negligence. The next morning, Elena found Jamal on the same bench. This time, He was holding some leaves he had collected from the city botanical garden. "Do you really believe you can help that girl?" Elena asked, looking at the plants skeptically. "Elena," Jamal called her by the name he had read on her badge. "Do you know Dr. Sarah Chun, the Asian pediatrician who works the night shift?" Elena nodded. "I do. She's one of the few who really cares about her patients, not just the protocols. I need to talk to her. She's the only one who might have the courage to question Dr. Mitchell." Elena hesitated for a moment. Helping a street kid sneak into the hospital could cost her her job, but there was something about Jamal's determination that convinced her he wasn't just another kid playing pranks. "Dr. Chun always has coffee at the back cafeteria at 2 a.m. during her break," Elena whispered. "But how are you going to convince her to listen to you?" Jamal smiled for the first time in days, showing Elena a worn notebook he always carried with him. "My grandmother made me write down everything she taught me. Every plant, every combination, every symptom. Dr. Chun will recognize the knowledge when she sees it." That afternoon, Jamal got more crucial information. Hidden behind the dumpster in the back, he overheard Dr. Mitchell on the phone with someone who was clearly his superior. "Yes, sir, I understand that the protocol cost $50 million in research. No, we're not going to change the dosage now. Miss Blackwood is our most important test case." Jamal felt anger boiling in his chest. Isabella wasn't a test case. She was a 7-year-old child who was dying while privileged doctors protected their careers and investments. At 2 a.m., Elena discreetly led Jamal to the back cafeteria. Dr. Chun was alone, drinking coffee and reviewing medical records. "Dr. Chun," Elena approached cautiously. "This boy has information about patient Isabella Blackwood that I think you should hear." The doctor looked at Jamal in surprise. "How do you know about this patient?" "The information is confidential." Jamal took a deep breath and opened his worn notebook. "Doctor, with all due respect, the treatment you are giving Isabella is killing her faster than the disease itself." Dr. Chun was about to dismiss him when Jamal began talking about liver toxicity, drug interactions, and the signs Isabella was exhibiting. His knowledge was surprisingly accurate and detailed. "Where did you learn this?" she asked, her demeanor shifting from condescending to genuinely interested. "My grandmother healed people in the community for 40 years. She taught me that medicine isn't about diplomas hanging on the wall, it's about really understanding what the body is trying to tell you." Dr. Chun looked at the records she had brought with her. Isabella's symptoms did indeed align with what the boy was describing, something she had begun to suspect but hadn't had the courage to question openly. "And you have an alternative?" she asked calmly. Jamal showed her the plants he had collected. "My grandmother always said, sometimes the most powerful cure is to stop poisoning the body and let it heal naturally, with a little help from the right plants." For the first time in days, Elena saw a glimmer of hope in Dr. Chen's tired eyes. But she also knew that challenging Dr. Mitchell and the entire hospital system would be a battle that could destroy her own career. "If I help you," Dr. Chen whispered, looking around to make sure no one was listening, "you have to promise me you'll do exactly what I say when I say it." Jamal nodded solemnly. "I promise, doctor. We just want to save Isabella." What neither Jamal nor Dr. Chen knew was that Dr. Mitchell had installed extra security cameras in the hallways after suspecting that confidential information was being leaked. And at that very moment, images of them talking in the cafeteria were being recorded. While they were secretly planning how to save Isabella, powerful forces within the hospital were already moving to ensure that a black street kid would never interfere with the business of an institution that generated billions of dollars annually. The clash between ancestral knowledge and corporate medicine was just beginning, and the stakes couldn't be higher. But what those arrogant doctors didn't know was that underestimating Jamal would be the biggest mistake of their careers, because sometimes, the deepest wisdom comes from exactly where we least expect it, and true healing has no color, social class, or diploma hanging on the wall. The next morning, Dr. Mitchell burst into the back cafeteria with 2 security guards. His face was contorted with rage as he pointed directly at Jamal. "This boy is infiltrating the hospital and collecting confidential patient information." Dr. Chun stood protectively in front of Jamal. "Dr. Mitchell, he hasn't done anything illegal. He's just what? Playing doctor with plants from the garden." Dr. Mitchell laughed dismissively. "Security, remove this boy immediately and ensure he never sets foot on this property again." But Jamal didn't move. Instead, He slowly pulled his battered phone from his pocket. Dr. Mitchell, before you kick me out, I think Mrs. Blackwood would like to hear our conversation from last night. Dr. Mitchell's face paled. What conversation? Jamal pressed play. Dr. Mitchell's clear voice echoed through the cafeteria. Miss Blackwood is our most important test case. We're not changing the dosage, even if she's getting worse. You recorded our private conversation? Dr. Mitchell stammered. It wasn't private, doctor. You were yelling in the parking lot. Anyone could have heard. Jamal kept his voice calm, but his eyes flashed with determination. And there's more. At that moment, Dr. Chen's cell phone rang urgently. It was from the ICU. Isabella Blackwood is in critical condition. I need you here now. Everyone rushed to the elevator. On the third floor, Victoria was hysterical beside Isabella's bed, who was convulsing violently. The monitors beeped desperately. What's happening to my daughter? Victoria yelled at Dr. Mitchell. It's a normal reaction to the treatment, he lied, nervously adjusting his tie. Normal reaction? Jamal approached the bed, ignoring the protests of the security guards. Mrs. Blackwood, your daughter is having a toxic reaction to the experimental treatment. It's not the disease that's killing her, it's the drugs. Victoria spun around like a hurricane. What do you mean? Dr. Mitchell tried to intervene. This boy has no medical qualifications. He can't. He's right, Dr. Chen interrupted, her voice trembling. Victoria, I've suspected this for days. Isabella's symptoms aren't from the original disease. They're from drug poisoning. Lie. Dr. Mitchell exploded. You're trying to sabotage years of medical research. This protocol cost $50 million. That's when Jamal played his final card. Ms. Blackwood, I have one more recording. This one was made 3 days ago. He pressed play again. Dr. Mitchell's voice filled the room. If she dies during treatment, we document it as a failure of the original disease, not the protocol. We cannot allow this investment to be questioned. The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria looked at Dr. Mitchell with an expression that could melt steel. You were willing to let my daughter die to protect your research? Dr. Mitchell recoiled, breaking out in a cold sweat. Victoria, you don't understand the complexities of modern medicine. Sometimes sacrifices are necessary for the greater good. Out. Victoria shouted, her voice echoing through the hallways. Out of my hospital. Security, remove this man immediately. As Dr. Mitchell was escorted out, protesting and threatening legal action, Jamal calmly approached Isabella's bedside. Mrs. Blackwood, with your permission, we can immediately stop the toxic treatment and begin a natural detoxification process. Your daughter is strong. If we stop poisoning her, her body can heal itself. Victoria, tears streaming down her face, nodded desperately. Do anything. Just save my daughter. Dr. Chen officially took over the case, following Jamal's instructions exactly. They discontinued all experimental medications and began a detoxification protocol based on the ancestral knowledge Jamal's grandmother had taught him. Within 6 hours, Isabella stopped convulsing. Within 12 hours, her temperature returned to normal. Within 24 hours, she opened her eyes and whispered, "Mommy." Victoria collapsed in tears of relief, holding her daughter as if she were the most precious thing in the world. My love, you're okay. You're okay. Dr. Mitchell tried to return the next day with his lawyers, but found a medical investigation committee, journalists, and representatives from the Ministry of Health waiting for him. Jamal's recordings had been leaked, and the scandal was splashed across every newspaper. Elite doctor used children as guinea pigs, screamed the headline. Street boy exposes $1 million negligence at hospital. What Dr. Mitchell didn't know was that Jamal hadn't collected just 2 recordings. During weeks of observing the hospital, he had documented conversations, questionable practices, and evidence of other cases where poor patients received inadequate treatment while the rich received expensive experimental care, even when those treatments were harmful. While Dr. Mitchell faced criminal charges and the complete destruction of his career, something extraordinary was happening in Isabella's room. The girl who had been given up on by the country's best doctors was not only recovering but thriving under simple, humane, and ethical care. Victoria looked at Jamal, who was quietly organizing his medicinal plants. How can I thank you? You don't have to thank me, Mrs. Blackwood. Just promise me one thing: never again let money be more important than a child's life. While Isabella laughed and played in her bed, something she hadn't done in months, the medical empire built on arrogance and greed was crumbling in the courts. But the real revolution was just beginning, because sometimes a child that everyone despises carries in their hands the very knowledge that can rewrite the rules of an entire system that thought itself untouchable. 6 months later, Jamal walked through the halls of the same hospital where he had been expelled and humiliated. But this time, he wasn't running from security guards or hiding behind trash cans. He wore a medical research assistant uniform, carrying a briefcase with his name engraved on it, Jamal Washington, consultant in traditional integrative medicine. "Good morning, Dr. Jamal," Elena greeted him, now promoted to nursing supervisor after her reports of questionable practices helped in the investigation that brought down Dr. Mitchell. "Dr. Chun is waiting for you in the lab." Mount Sinai Hospital's integrative medicine pilot program had become a national benchmark. Not only had Isabella made a full recovery, but Victoria had invested $10 million to create a research center that combined ancient knowledge with modern medicine. At 12, Jamal was the youngest consultant in American medical history. "The results from the latest patients are impressive," Dr. Chun reported during the weekly meeting. "We have reduced post-surgical recovery time by 40% using the natural detoxification protocols Jamal developed." At the same time, 800 kilometers away, Dr. Mitchell signed yet another rejected unemployment claim. After having his medical license revoked, he had tried to work as an insurance salesman, a veterinary clinic receptionist, and even a food delivery man. No employer wanted to associate their company with the medical scandal that had shocked the country. "Dr. Mitchell?" The voice on the phone was that of an investigative journalist. "Would you like to comment on the new allegations? We have discovered that you falsified results in at least 12 other cases over the past 5 years." Mitchell hung up without answering. In the rented apartment where he now lived, a dizzying fall from the mansion he had lost in lawsuits, he stared at the television, which was showing a report on the wunderkind of integrative medicine. Jamal was being interviewed live, explaining how medicinal plants could complement modern treatments. At 12 years old, he spoke with the authority of someone who had saved dozens of lives. "True medicine has no color, social class, or diploma hanging on the wall," Jamal told the cameras. "It has the humility to recognize that healing can come from the most unexpected places." Victoria, sitting in the front row of the audience, smiled proudly. Isabella, now 8 years old and completely healthy, drew in her notebook portraits of her big brother Jamal, as she had begun to call him. The Isabella Blackwood Scholarship Program had already benefited 200 children from underprivileged communities, offering integrative medical education. Jamal personally supervised each case, ensuring that no child was underestimated because of their background. "Do you know what I've learned from all this?" Jamal said during a lecture at Harvard University, the same university that Dr. Mitchell had graduated from. "I've learned that when you have true knowledge and a pure heart, it doesn't matter how many doors are closed in your face. You don't have to knock them down, you build new windows." In the audience, 500 future doctors listened in silence. Some were from wealthy families, others from poor communities. They all understood that they were witnessing a medical revolution led by a child who could easily have been overlooked. Dr. Mitchell watched the lecture online from his cramped apartment. He saw when Jamal mentioned that medical arrogance kills more than many diseases, and felt the weight of each word. His hands trembled as he remembered how many patients he had treated as numbers on profit spreadsheets. Elena sent Jamal a message: "Another hospital wants to implement your protocols. This time it's in Chicago. You're changing the whole world, kid." Jamal smiled as he read the message. He remembered that night 6 months ago when he was being kicked out of those same hallways. Who would have thought that one night's humiliation would turn into a medical revolution for a generation? During the follow-up appointment, Isabella rushed to hug Jamal. "Thank you for not giving up on me," she whispered. "I would never give up," Jamal replied, "because real medicine is about love, not money." Victoria watched the scene and thought about how a 12-year-old boy had taught her more about humanity than decades of privileged life. Her fortune now had a real purpose: to ensure that ancestral knowledge was respected and integrated into modern medicine. Meanwhile, Dr. Mitchell received another collection letter. He had lost not only his career and money, but the respect of the global medical community. His arrogance had cost him not only his own downfall, but had almost cost the life of an innocent child. The lesson was clear: when you underestimate someone based on prejudice, you are not only being unfair, you are wasting the chance to learn from wisdom that may be found exactly where you least expect it. Jamal proved that true medicine does not require expensive degrees or luxurious laboratories. It requires careful observation, humility to learn, and above all, genuine compassion for those who are suffering. If this story of how a 12-year-old boy revolutionized modern medicine has inspired you, subscribe to the channel for more stories of people who turned their greatest humiliations into their greatest victories, because sometimes the deepest wisdom comes from those whom the whole world has chosen to ignore.